find out how many in total.
All right, here we go. Okay, everybody, welcome to the December 19th regular city council meeting. Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first of all, we need a motion to approve the additions to the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. B, Mike, we're going to have the proposed 2020 budget.
Okay, so the purpose of the public information meeting tonight is to give the public, if they haven't already shared their comments, to ask questions. So it's not for me to talk, it's for me to answer questions. Short recap, this would be our 5th budget meeting, if I'm counting right. We started back in August with this process formally. We had a meeting in August, one in September, 2 in September, one of which where we approved the preliminary levy, one in October, and now tonight is the final one. The goal tonight is to take public comments under consideration and approve the final 2019 tax levy collectible in 2020, and then approve the 2020 city budget. So I'm here for questions.
Okay, do we open it up to public? Do they have any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Does anybody in the public have anything? Oh, a couple. Okay, come on up.
Marcia Seibert Bowles, Cross Lake, Minnesota. I just have a question about the budget presented to the city council could be funded by a 6.15% increase, and you're increasing it by 9% because you need a cushion. Why would you need a cushion if you have all your budgeted items covered with the 6.15% increase? The market value in the city of Cross Lake, I think the county raised buildings 5% with an additional $7 per square foot. And then if you had shoreline, they increased the value on that. And so I'm just wondering, along with, I don't know if the county does that every year. Do they do that every year, Mike, or is that just when the sales ratio gets out of line?
What the county is tasked with is every 5 years, they do every year they do 20% of the city, unless you built a new home somewhere in there, and we report that information to the county, so the county can reflect that change in value right away instead of waiting 5 years.
Okay, so it's been 5 years since they've come in and increased the market value, because there was no improvements, and they told me it was across the city.
I can't speak for the county, but what I do know is every 5 years they come out, once every 5 years they come out to your property and take a look at it.
They had told me that it was a 5% increase in buildings in the city of Cross Lake, plus an additional $7 per square foot on buildings, plus if you had shoreline, there was another increase. And it depended on what lake you were on at that time. And that's here or there, but the 6.15%, I'm not understanding why you need 9% if 6.15% will cover it. And if you have an emergency, can't you reallocate your budget funds from another item that isn't an emergency and put that into 2021? I guess I'd like the council to reconsider the 9%.
Yeah, and we talked about it quite a bit, because 7% is what we said we could get along with. And why did we decide to do that? Just so we had a little reserve? I mean, and partially because we got an awful lot of stuff going on in town.
That was the key.
Well, I can answer that. We did that for a number of reasons. There's a couple ways to look at this. You can say, what's happening to our taxable market value? And how does that affect our tax rate? And so with the levy, preliminary levy that you approved back in September, we can show that the tax rate stays relatively constant. It goes up 0.32%. So the tax rate stays about the same. So if there are changes in someone's property taxes, it's because their value changed, which can go up or down. And remember,
So that, what you had there was based on 9%.
that's correct,
That's
and that's
what-
what's in
that's
your
where we
packet.
ended up.
The other thing we looked at too was what's driving most of that increase. Most of it is the debt service for the 2019 bonds. And remember, we used about $32,000, $34,000 of the bond premium to reduce the levy for that bond issue. So that makes up about just under 7% of the proposed tax adjustment. That makes sense to
Mike,
everyone?
I got a question. I got my 2020 proposed property taxes in the mail a few weeks ago.
Yep,
And they did not know what the city was doing at that time, or did they?
yes, they did.
Oh, they did, so that's based on what this is.
That's
Well, they
correct.
got it out in a hurry, huh?
Yeah, they have to get it out in November before we have these meetings, so people
Okay.
can see what the impact of.
And I
proposed
noted, I
levies
got a
are.
few pieces of property on there, but most of them went down. The bottom line went down in my taxes. They did.
Yep, some go down, some go up,
Yeah,
some
and
don't
one that
change.
went up and, yeah.
Um,
So
one-
it's, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, 1% comes to about $39,000, between $39,000 and $40,000. Just so if you want to talk about rates a little bit, a 5% rate adjustment over last year would calculate a 29.35% tax rate, which gets applied to your market value. 6% is just about 30%. 7% is 29.9. 7.84 means the tax rate stays the same as it did last year. Okay,
The tax rate.
the rate.
Yeah. So the reason we put a little cushion in there is because we've got a few options this year that we may decide to move on, and it would give us a little bit of a cushion. And it seems like there's options that come up every day. We got another one here today we got to look at.
Yeah. Oh, good questions, though.
So,
I think you had another person with a question.
sure, you want to come up? Come on up. You got to state your name and address.
I'm here again for the third time about my separate years. Property taxes, my name's Ann Schwartz, and I'm on Edgewater Lane. I have the smallest home on Edgewater Lane, by far. And my taxes went up again, and I contested last year as well with a lot of evidence with comps and everything. So I have a ton of comps for you here today as well, houses.
I don't know if this is the place for that, though, Ann.
Okay, so then I'll ask, well, it said I should come to this meeting. It says right here.
Yeah, this is to discuss the proposed taxes for 2020.
For the city, but
For
you
the
have to
city,
go to the
not the
county for
valuation.
that now,
Okay.
Yeah.
right?
Okay, well, then I have a separate question. I'd like an update on the sewer. I've been on Edgewater Lane probably my whole life, certain time periods. But anyway, now I have owned for the last 20 years, and the sewer went in, and when the sewer went in, I came to all the meetings, and I was told for certain that that sewer was going around, and that we would not bear the cost of the sewer. And it's been, what, 15 years? And I heard from people on the other side of the lake where the sewer was supposed to go in, they fought it and succeeded. So I cooperated with this group because you had to come through my property to get the sewer down Edgewater Lane. but with that promise in mind.
Well, let me direct you to December 13th, Friday at 2 PM, I think. We are going to have a totally separate assessment hearing for the sewer. And,
She's already on the source.
okay, but I mean, so what do you, what,
Well, I'm concerned that, I know it costs more than you expected, but to pay $50 a month for
Oh, for the
a
monthly
little
hookup.
strip of sewer, sorry, that's outrageous. I can be in anywhere around the cities, and you can get sewer, water, garbage for under $40.
I don't
You're
know.
talking about the monthly fee.
The monthly fee, it's outrageous.
Okay, I was trying to understand where that was coming from.
Well, I guess my
no,
question was
that's
about the
fine.
plan,
Yeah.
because the plan 15 years ago, when I agreed to let you come through my property, was that, because I was concerned about cost, monthly fee as well. And the plan was, and a promise, that it was going to go beyond that around the lake, and that others would be pitching in for the cost. And it's been 15 years. That was a 2 or 3 year plan 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, none of us can talk to that. I mean, it was a different council on a different day. We are kind of trying to move forward with some expansion of the sewer now.
Okay?
I don't know that it's
So
going to
what,
help your
I'd like
monthly
to know what
bill.
happened 15 years ago, because I saw the plan all laid out with dates.
Well, I mean, it's another council, it's another whole, I don't know. I mean, does anybody want to respond to that? I don't know how we could.
I'd really like to understand how decisions are made here, and that would be an example of one.
Well, councils changes. Every 2 years, the mayor changes, every 4 years, the council turns over, and they can, that's where the change comes from. You never know.
And I can't change what already happened on my street. And I don't know, it's irritating. And then I look at, well, I'll save the other stuff for my tax discussion. But, so I've said my piece. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Anybody else on the budget? Okay, let's close the public hearing on that. So I guess the only question is, do we want to, I mean, we're already staying at the 9. We decided to do that last time. And it amounts to, what is it, amounts to, Mike, $80,000 or something, over 70? Or over 7? It's, I mean, that's the kind of cushion that we gave ourselves.
It's about 109. You guys remember at our last meeting, we had moved Wild Wind Ranch Road into 2020, because we had already funded it. We just didn't get it done this year. So we're paying cash for that. Then we had an updated estimate on a server for the watch guard in the police department. We upped that 3,000, so the 112 went to 109.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, go ahead.
Anybody else have anything? All right, so move on to the resolution, I guess, huh?
Sure, so your resolution would be to approve the final 2019 collectible 2020 tax levy. And that just happens to be on page 1 of your packet.
No.
Okay,
Can I ask a question before we go? I'd like to understand how we could do the budget for the 6%. I don't want to be accused of blowing off people, but
That was in your units, Dave, that you would break even on your budget at 6.15%.
but we didn't pad anything. We didn't
No.
pad numbers. I don't want to be,
Well, at 6.15%, but you're increasing at 9%.
Right.
My taxes went up 11.5%, my market value went up 11.
Right.
I just don't see why you would budget for a cushion. That's not generally what we do.
Well, that's the part that bugs me, because I don't think we have the word cushion in there. There's something in the expenses. I mean, we're not making money on this.
No, we would do what we've
We have to
done
take out something.
in previous years. We would use that money to reduce the size of a bond issue, because we do have significant debt listed in here, too, for roads and sewer. If we have available funds, we would use that to reduce the size of the bond issue.
In your minutes, it says unforeseen expenses.
Yeah, I don't know what. I know we do have some unforeseens that are going to be coming, but that's probably not the proper way to describe it.
Then you should reallocate from your budget. Instead of budgeting for in case.
All right, what do you want to do? Move it forward, or should we reconsider it?
This is our fourth or fifth meeting on it. I think we've beaten on it enough. I'll make a motion to move forward.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, then, thank you. The second part of the budget process would be to approve the 2020 budget, and a summary of which is provided on page 12. Where we provided the total revenues and the total expenditures.
Okay, any comment on this?
Nice question.
Sure.
Is this the proposed sewer project
If you
in
could-
here?
Come up, please.
Okay. This is Ann again, and I'm wondering if the proposed sewer project is included in this? It is.
It is.
Okay. Maybe should I save my questions about the detail on that for December 13th?
Well, that's an assessment hearing. I don't know. You know, there's open forum, you could get up and make a statement about it.
Well, I don't-
I'm not sure, you know, if I heard everything you were going to say, what we can do about it, so.
Right now, we're just trying to get through budget,
Right.
okay?
Well, I was just noticing, if I read it right, that the proposed and actual for this year, proposed was a lot higher in terms of cost than the actual, and I just don't know if I'm reading it right.
In the sewer project?
No,
Well-
this year for the sewer expenses.
Oh,
I can speak to that.
yeah.
Okay.
Speak to that.
Yeah, we put a placeholder in the budget last year. I mean, the year we're in right now, if we were going to do that sewer project this year, because we've been talking about it for a long time. So we put it in there, and we offset it by any debt we would issue against it. So it's in the budget, but we didn't issue bonds for
So
it,
we're
nor
just
did we do
gonna-
the project. So
We're
we
just going to
moved
carry it
next
over.
year.
Yeah.
We had a discussion last year.
No, we didn't.
It's just that you didn't.
We didn't issue bonds, we didn't issue bonds for it either, so.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the 2020 budget.
So moved.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Mike. Okay, next, the consent calendar. All items here are listed are considered to be routine by the city council and will be acted on by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a citizen or council member requests. Anybody see anything there they want to pull out?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Hecox.
I second.
Second by Andrews. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Public forum. No action will be taken on any of these issues raised. If appropriate, the issue will be placed on the agenda for a future council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Each speaker is given a 3-minute time frame. Anybody have anything for public forum?
Tom Swenson, West Shore Drive. 3 months ago, I was up here at Public Forum suggesting the council consider an RFP for legal services. The October meeting, nothing was mentioned about it. I was up here again at the November meeting questioning whether it's been 7 years since the city's done a request for proposals. I have nothing against Brad or the job he's doing. It's a policy issue that every 6 or 7 years, I think it'd be good to go out and get a request for proposal. Now, when I was at the November meeting, at the end of that meeting, I left this meeting with the understanding that public forum items would be placed on the next agenda. This is not on the agenda.
I
mean,
guess it's
you
not.
come up here for public forum, and whatever you say just seems to go in a black hole.
Well, there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in looking for that RFP.
Well,
I
then
think.
tell me that.
Okay, well,
I mean, when you come up here, I think that was the frustration Marcia was saying last meeting, that people come up here and they bring up something and then nothing's ever said about it.
yeah.
I mean, I don't care whether you do the RFP. I'm up here now only because I left the last meeting with the understanding that you people said to direct staff that items that are brought up during public forum would be an agenda item at the next meeting. And I don't know if staff didn't get the memo or what, but that's why I'm up here. I don't care right now. Brad does a good job. You know, it's nothing against him or his firm. Mine was a policy issue that every 5 or 6 years in the past, we always went out for both legal and engineering. You've been going out for engineering proposals on an annual basis, but it's been 7 years since there's been an RFP for legal services. So, you know, and part of the thing is in the public forum, you know, you say, well, maybe some things we could act on, other things we may need more information. I think that's the confusing part, you know, because you guys aren't going to say anything amongst yourselves between meetings, or it's an illegal meeting. It's up to staff to, you know, put something on the agenda or, you know, review it, make a recommendation. We don't recommend we go out for an RFP. We recommend we go out for an RFP. But all I'm saying is public forum is awful frustrating when people, you know, ask a question and they never get a response.
All right, well, I apologize for that. I don't disagree with you, but I think it's because there hasn't been any interest in doing so. But staff, can we try to follow through with that?
This is one of those issues the council.
If I wanted it on and I elected? All right, Tom, staff did ask and I elected not to put it on there, I guess, or at least to pursue it. We should have put it on just to comment on it and decide that we don't want to do anything. So that's my error. I own it.
But it shouldn't just be you. I mean, that should be a council decision that staff goes to you and you unilaterally say, no, let's not pursue it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not enough.
Well, let's all try
Want a
to,
motion? I'll make a motion that we respond to every public forum question at the following meeting, period.
yeah, and we got to rely on staff to remind us
Well,
to
but
do
you're
so.
talking about publicly, Dave. Here.
Well, in the subsequent council meeting. Shouldn't take that long.
Right, no, I think we
You
should.
know, and if there's
I
something on
agree
there,
with them.
there's
Yeah.
something on there that you can't figure out the answer to
It's
at
just-
the next meeting, you better do the meeting, another meeting before the council meeting.
Okay, so we got a motion to follow through with that. Do we have a second on that?
Yes.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So let's all try to work on that.
So do you want to take action now on,
Well, I don't, can we? I mean, I just did. I mean, we don't have an interest in doing that.
Want a motion on it?
yes,
Okay. Want to make a motion?
Make a motion that I believe the council's satisfied with what we have, and there's no point in going further with it.
Okay, we got a motion. Second?
I'll second that. I'll
Got a
second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I think that carries through with, well, I don't know what we're going to do with engineering. I think we get proposals from them every year, right?
we
Yeah,
asked for them,
yeah, but I mean, we get them.
they just don't bring them.
Oh,
And these guys will bring what they're proposing for next year, but you're not going to get new companies coming in with.
yeah, no, right, yeah, no.
Now, we had Ann up here, and I'm not sure what the question was that we have to answer by the next meeting.
Well, I think hers is more of a, how are the assessments going to work for the oncoming sewer
Let's
connection?
clarify that. Ann, could you come up again and clarify what you came up for? Let's, yeah. I think it was a complaint about your monthly charge.
Well, there's two, they go together. Because the more people you have hooked up to the sewer, I'm going to assume, God hope, the price goes down each month, right? And I guess I'm a little, so it was kind of a statement about the lack of progress that was promised on the sewer 15 years ago. Like I said, there was a whole plan laid out with dates and walking around the lake where it was going to go, and that's what I saw. And you needed to come through my property to put the sewer down Edgewater Lane. And that was a big reason why I was here at all those meetings. So I'm making a statement. I'm really disappointed. I don't know if there is a plan. I don't know why the plan, there was no follow-through on the original plan. I don't want to think it's because the people on the other side who are, have more money to, rub elbows or whatever, have that kind of influence. It's disappointing. I was very cooperative and really trusted the work that was being done here.
Yeah, I can't speak to
And I agree
that.
with him. It's, every time I come here, there's no answer, no follow-up.
Yeah.
It's discouraging.
Well, I can't answer for what happened 15 years ago. Right now, we are looking at a few sewer expansion projects.
Okay.
I don't
And
want
so
to
I'll come to the December 13th meeting, because when you look at this statement here of all the details, there's a lot here that does not make sense. So-
It's this Friday,
Okay,
13th.
I'll be here.
Yeah, it's an
All right, thank
assessment
you.
hearing for a particular sewer expansion project that we're doing.
In the afternoon.
2 o'clock,
2 o'clock? Yeah.
2 till 8.
Okay. I'm going to jump into the mayor's report. We got a letter from Growing Power, and what is it? Just Growing Power is kind of working with us. Meter relief, we get $2,300 credit a year or something? Shar, I don't know, I didn't spend a lot of
We
time.
saved that in 24 years.
22,000 in 24 years. We get 2,300 this year, it sounds like. But anyway, they're working with us. So, appreciate that. 2 is a resolution accepting donations. Marcia, this is where the PAL is on here. Do you want to come up? And we have got donations from the PAL Foundation and the Cross Lake Firefighters Relief Association. And I think Marcia wants to present us with a check from the PAL.
Yeah, the Pell contribution is $3,303.08. It's for the
Projector.
projector at the community center that we're funding. And he's probably got a lot more to say.
Yeah, this new projector system will make it more compatible with newer laptops. We'll have 2 inputs rather than just one, so rather than just a VGA input-output system, we're going to be compatible with HDMI. So it's going to be a lot more user-friendly for the people renting the meeting room 1 and setting up for presentations and everything else. So it's going to make it a lot easier for staff and people who rent the room.
Okay, TJ, I don't know if this question is fair to you, but the 300 for the black gold compost, what's that?
Yeah, so black gold is compost that we put in the community garden. It's kind of a new thing we're doing this year. We picked up the black gold, brought it over to the community center, and each gardener paid $10 per scoop, a third of a yard, and we delivered it on their plot, so,
So where did that $300 come from?
from PAL,
From PAL also?
correct.
Okay. Well, thank you, PAL, for donating.
Thank you.
And then we've got one more from the Cross Lake Firefighters Relief Association for $1,100. $1,111, that's dedicated to go into power tools. Anything you want to say about that, Chip? No? Okay. Thank you.
Motion?
I move that we accept these donations.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, Cindy. Cindy Mugato from the Chamber.
Good evening. I am here to let you know that Winterfest planning is in full swing. It's taking place this year on January 30th through February 1st. It'll begin Thursday with the treasure hunt, the 3-day hunt for the medallion, where businesses donate goods and services, and then whoever finds the medallion wins the prize. Last year, or just this past September, the prize package was worth over $2,000, so a lot of people searching for that, or will be. Friday night, we have the kickoff at the Cross Lake Community Center. We'll have skating on the new rink, the snow mountain, of course, the horse-drawn wagon rides, and fireworks. So I do need your permission to have the fireworks show on Friday, January 31st at 9 p.m. We have Flashing Thunder Fireworks doing the show, George Burton, who has been doing the show over there for about 5 years now. And then Saturday, February 1st, we'll have the Fireman's Pancake Breakfast, all the activities going on all over town, the helicopter rides at Moonlight Bay, bocce ball tournament at Riverside, radar runs down on the ice in front of Moonlight Bay. Richard said he'll do the carousel if the ice conditions are proper. And then, of course, we'll have the Soup Fest taking place starting at noon. So 2 things I need from you this evening. One is to have the fireworks on Friday, January 31st at 9 p.m., and the other is to have the Soup Fest on Saturday, February 1st at noon. And I do
Two
need a
separate
motion.
motions? No?
Probably one.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion for that?
Move.
John?
Second it.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Cindy, for
Thank
doing
you.
that. Yeah. Okay, next I got a little update on the City Hall and the Police Department next door. The weather is not real cooperative, but it's going up. They say that we'll have a roof on the building by the first of the year. They're coming in for another pay request here this month. I guess there'll be a pay request each month probably, huh? Yeah, so it's coming along. Hopefully we'll get a roof on it by the first of the year and be able to move forward. Any questions on that? Any comments?
The motion to pay that?
Oh, we do?
Make a
Okay.
motion that we pay the bill that's been submitted for $371,969.35.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, next we got one that just kind of landed in our lap, and this is one of those miscellaneous things, but there's a lot just north of the ambulance garage, right on 66. It's an old log landing lot, and this guy just brought it to us, offering to sell it to us at a reduced price. So, did you guys read the letter from him? So,
I hate to be a curmudgeon here, but I'm not sure he has a right to offer it to the city because this is private residential property. and you will be obligating the city to pay annual dues and assessments and so on and so forth to Old Log Landing. So it just, maybe
mentioned
Brad
here.
could talk to that better.
Well, I agree, it's part of the association. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, you would know the amount of dues and so on better than me, but
Well,
I know there are dues.
If it got to be pushed to shove, could the city have it removed from the association?
I don't believe-
Or would the association ever entertain removing it from there?
I don't believe that the city, just because we're the city, can unilaterally exempt ourselves. We would need to cooperate and work with the association.
there's an adjacent lot right beside it, so you'd end up with one lot that's residential, one lot that's city-owned, residential and commercial. And I think that would put that second lot in a really precarious position association-wise. So the association may not be interested in having you entertain that.
Well,
but that's at least to come from the president, not
A
me.
couple potential uses for that lot that I've thought of is, one, if we ever needed to expand or move the ambulance garage, it could go there, now barring there's an agreement. And the other one is, if we go ahead and do the County Road 66 sewer expansion, we're kind of looking for something to do with stormwater. And if we were to dig a hole there and put the stormwater in that pit, it would be a nice off-lake spot for it.
And that would be your sales pitch.
Well, yeah, I mean, otherwise, what do we want it?
They're trying to go across the street to the parking lot.
What are the annual HOA fees or whatever terms of dues for the
Well, they're
association?
$275 a year, but there also is, from time to time, special assessments. Like right now, they're putting in rock to stabilize the hill over there and so forth. So there's going to be a special assessment coming down on that. And
So potentially
even give it to you.
long-term commitment for money. In other words, not just a straight-up sale yet.
Correct. Unless the association says if all you use it for is that pond, and then they would let it go, that would be,
Well, we could table this and ask Brad to look into it and see, or Mike or whoever to look into it, see what the options might be.
I would recommend before there's staff time on it, I mean, 2 points that come to mind. One, I know the seller believes it's a discount, but that doesn't make it true. I mean, do you want to get an appraisal or not, question mark? And two, I probably would want I would recommend a vote to agree that if you can work with the association and maybe exempt yourselves from it by cooperation with the association, would you want it then? If you don't want it, that seems like a waste of effort. I don't know what the council thinks.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys think either.
It could make
I
a
just thought it was
decision on getting
possibly
those
an
two things done.
opportunity, but,
it's a perfect spot for that collection pond that they're trying to create.
yeah, actually, I'd like to see it north about 2 blocks, so it was more center, but whatever, I mean, it'd certainly work.
So the one lot should work, I think, for what they're trying to
You could
do.
also make a contingent on the engineers
Right.
weighing in on that.
Yeah, right.
Shouldn't we wait until Bolton and Mink has some sort of a firmer
Well,
plan?
yeah, except if we were to throw that in as their option, then they could take a look at it,
But you mentioned earlier an option for the extension of the fire hall or the pond.
Those are
And
just
if
two
you do it
things.
in the pond, there is no extension for the
Right,
fire hall.
yeah,
so
then
it's
you're committing to using it for the pond.
That's why I just soon have them wait.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would
I don't
think
think this is going to be gone overnight.
I would think I'd want to know ahead of time what the association might be willing to do. If they said, no way you're going to stay in the association, you need $275 a year or whatever in perpetuity, I feel differently than if they said, well, you can make a deal where you're out of the association.
Well, and I'd be curious to see if the engineers, maybe it's just out of the question, it won't work for that.
That was my recommendation. If it's a consensus of council that you're all somewhat interested based on the answers to those questions, you could direct staff to meet with the association and get an answer. I just didn't want to create work if
Right.
that wasn't a,
Good point.
does it feel like I'm looking at enough heads shaking that it's not a waste of effort, it sounds like. If you got good answers, you might want to buy this. Is that what I'm?
Well, that's what I would say. I mean,
I'd like to see Phil Martin's plan
So
when he's done.
Mike and I will get back to you
Right.
with engineering advice and also association input. What about the value question? Would you want an appraisal, or just, right now you've got a list price and an assessed price? which are two variables, but I don't know if they're sufficient. That's up to the council to decide. Normally, you'd get an appraisal. It does cost money to get an appraisal, of course.
I might want to wait to get the answers of what you're doing first before I got an appraisal, but that's.
I don't
what
know that the appraisal's going to change it too terribly much, is it?
1.2.
I mean,
It's not a huge value, if that's to your point,
Yeah.
yes.
so the appraisal would probably be secondary, depending on how we could use it.
He's got it worded as a donation from the city, which would mean.
I don't
to
know
him,
if he's
think
looking for a
talking about
tax
letter.
write-off or,
He's donating $10,000 or something of value?
That's how I read it.
Okay.
oh, so he wants 40 for it.
He wants
And a
40, but then
receipt
to paper it in
that
a way
he-
that he can get a donation on his tax. That doesn't hurt or help the city. That's for his benefit, is how I
Yeah,
read it.
okay, so, okay.
Stipulates
ask-
that it's
actually
worth
asking
50, but
50.
we're only buying it for 40.
Given 40 and
Yeah.
a receipt for 10 more. Okay, well, this guy approached me actually a couple months ago, and it's kind of taken a while to get something in writing, and now it's here, and so whatever it's worth.
I'm comfortable with staff taking a look at it.
Okay. How do you feel, Gary?
That's fine.
Yep, Dave?
Staff looks at it, and then we make a decision.
I think that's enough. We'll just do some information gathering and come back.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Should go on the agenda for January.
Okay, Mike, I think it's your report now.
All right, the first item under my report is the proposed 2020 fee schedule. We've got a few updates on there. One of the more notable ones, miscellaneous, on the first page. For assessment searches, right now we charge $5 for them. Takes us more than $5 to do an assessment search and verify things 3 different ways and get back to them. So we're asking to raise that to $15. When was the last time we looked at that, Char?
I don't remember when it was ever changed before.
I think it's been $5 for quite some time. On the second page is return check fee, $25 plus the actual costs incurred. Believe it or not, we do get a few return checks. And then setup and takedown fees are described on page 3. Miss Mailbox?
Public
Oh, I'm
Works.
sorry. Mailboxes. We want to recover our cost on replacing mailboxes with the standard mailboxes you've seen, like along the highway and stuff. We're asking to raise that from $75 to $125. We were just basically passing through the cost of the box without the labor.
So is that a replacement box if the plow guys knock it over, or is it replacement?
No, if somebody wants to come in and buy a post,
Then we will go and install it for them for $125, put it in, right? And then they've got an insurance policy for the plow? If they put in a city, if you put it in?
If we hit it, we fix it then.
Okay,
it's a swing-away post.
yeah.
Swing-away post. If we damage it with the swing-away post, we'll fix it.
So installed price of $125. I mean, that sure seems fair to me.
Okay, so some of the other ones, again, on page 3, setup and takedown fee will be assessed to all groups utilizing rental space, meeting room rentals, some minor changes there. Picnic shelter from $27 to $30 on page 4. Pickleball membership from $50 to $75. Day pass for seniors for tennis, $4. And one-time computer use without card purchase, $3. There's a few others in there, too. And then planning and zoning. You know, Shar, you had some other comments, too?
Pickleball, is that a yearly fee? Dave, do you know that? Is that
Yeah,
year-
annual,
yearly?
that's an annual, yeah.
And then we'll be moving to online payments. We'll be able to, when we get our website set up, we'll be able to accept payments online. And we're looking for a $3 convenience fee to cover our cost and the discount that we get charged by the provider.
Yeah, we wouldn't take that $3, the company.
That's
The
what
credit
they
card
charge
company
to do
takes
it,
that.
yeah.
They use that to cover the discount fee, which is a % of the transaction plus the transaction charge. Every time you swipe a card, somebody gets paid.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, so we're looking for a motion on that.
I make a motion to approve the new fee schedule.
My second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Assuming that includes the planning and zoning one?
Yep, includes planning and zoning.
Okay.
Those were updated too. All right, Brad, if you could put F2 up. So some of us have been spending quite a bit of time trying to figure out the local option sales tax, how to do it, how to get it through the legislature, and what is the right process. I think, we've had a lot of discussion on this, and we all know the process changed this year. So I've been working with a couple people at the Department of Revenue saying, I know the process changed. Do you have any samples out there that we can follow so we get this in the right format, cite the right statutes? Because now the local council needs to pass a resolution supporting the local sales and use tax to fund specific projects. So Dave Schrupp, Aaron, and a few others, Cindy was on the sales tax committee. We nominated Dave Schrupp to help me come up with the wording for the resolution, and so we spent an afternoon coming up with the wording, trying to make one fit. And as we were doing that, I got a response from both the League of Minnesota Cities, state person at the from the House at the state legislature that works on this stuff, and the Department of Revenue. They're all working together on coming up with the same format for the resolution. So what you have in front of you is the most recent version of what they're thinking they'll be willing to accept from a council for us to continue forward with that process. So what we did to figure out what projects should we put in there, it was the council's general consensus that we would direct the committee to look at sewering those areas that would have the most significant impact and protect water quality, whether it's the groundwater around the lakes or the lake water itself. So what we did is we took, back in October of last year, we accepted the final report from Phil's firm on citywide wastewater management study. So we took a look at that report, and in that report, there were 5 areas identified. One was the north system expansion, which is from City Hall to the intersection of 16 and 66. The Daggett Lake service area, the East Shore service area, Wildwood area, and then going down the community center road, picking up the rest of, connecting it to the Daggett Lake service area and possibly all the way out to Dream Island. So then, in talking with Ted, we went through this program and we looked, at some point, we're going to need to do something to our plant. We're not going to be able to do all of these projects without doing something to the plant. The plant will be reaching its useful life, and once it gets to about 85, 86% full is the time that our engineers are recommending that we need to seriously look at doing a rebuild of that plant, because by that time it'll be close to or up to its reaching its useful life as originally designed. One of the things that comes up is, what do we do with the biosolids? At some point, we're no longer going to have the ability to haul them somewhere else. We're going to need to take care of them ourselves. That's a big project. So what we did is we took out the the areas not on the lake, which was primarily Wildwood service area, and then incorporated the recommendations in this report to set our priorities, with one exception. Once the plant reaches its capacity, we need to do that rebuild, which would be after project number 3. So as listed in here, and we rounded these up to the nearest 100,000. So we looked at the northerly expansion system, 1.3 million, as priority 1. Priority 2 would be the Daggett Lake service area. Priority 3, southerly system expansion, which was East Shore Drive, then our plant's almost full. We're projecting that we need to do something with the plant, either rebuild it or redesign it, rebuild it, whatever we end up doing, put in the, be able to treat biosolids and be able to handle all of the things that are coming in there. Once that's done, we could go to priority 5, which would be the community center service area. So we add all those projects up, we're looking at about $21 million of total project cost to do all of them. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to do all of them. What that means is you want them large enough so you can issue enough bonds to cover the cost of the project. Because you don't want to authorize yourself for $1 million and find out the project is 2, because then you've got to come up with the other half. The sales tax committee and the council's direction was to request 0.5% of sales tax for 25 years. We had a lot of discussion on what's the magic of 25 years. Should it be 12? Should it be 15? Should it be 30? Or anywhere in between? Should we ask for 15, and if that's successful, go back and ask to do it again? What I'm finding in talking with the folks at the Department of Revenue, it's not uncommon. In fact, it's more the norm than others is to do something between 20 and 30. So we picked 25. Remember, last summer we had the sales tax study done, and we had a presentation on this item from the department, or from the University of Minnesota Extension Service. Now, when they do these reports, they kind of say tongue-in-cheek, well, we're giving you some conservative numbers because we don't want to say you're going to generate a number and then get half of it. So the numbers, as he presented them, are fairly conservative. At 0.5% for the retail sales in Cross Lake, for the reporting sales, that was about $240,000. So we had to project out or come up with some kind of middle ground to say, okay, how do we deal with that? Because if the council approves this, then we're going to set up meetings with the mayor and our legislators, say, help us get this through the House and the Senate so we can get a bill passed sometime early spring, late spring, early summer, so we can start holding public hearings on what that means with those projects. So what we did was we said, if we get authorization to do this from the council, and if the legislature says, yep, this is a good thing, we think we'll get about $100,000 as early as 2021, because it'd be the second half of 21. We'll have some setup costs. And then we took that $240,000 that the study was and said, let's assume we're going to get that, and then whether it's a 1% inflation or a 5% or a 3%, let's project that out. So I used 3% over going out 25 years, and you get about $8.6 million, 8.6 and some change, so I rounded it up because I thought it was conservative. So that's how I got the $8.7 million of potential sales tax. So the way the wording is in the revised language is it says, we're asking to issue up to $21 million of bonds to fund these projects and this priority, and generate up to $8.7 million of potential sales tax. So the way it would happen is, let's say everything goes through and we go on with these projects, 8.7 million is a lot less than 21. But it picks up a big chunk of it.
Can't you say $10 million in sales tax? Because once we get to the 8.7, we stop?
Or the projects are done. I think we're pushing it at 3%. We're assuming 3% every year.
Yeah, okay.
So if we get more, we could, in 10 years, you could go back and revisit it and say, hey,
Yeah.
this is working out really well. There's a way to do that.
It's just if you say 8.7 or 8.1 in today's dollars, what does that relate to in 2043? Is
He
it,
has it figured for that already.
okay.
Yeah, I just put a straight inflationary factor in there.
But we can deal with that.
So between the city's share, the beneficiaries share in this, you can go a long ways with that.
Yeah. Tom, did you have a question, comment?
I'm going to go to page 2.
I don't really know what I'm talking about on this, but I thought when the U of M was here giving the synopsis of their study, and I'm not saying necessarily we want to go to 1%, but wasn't there a comment that you could go for 1% and then it's up to the council if you only want to go 0.5%? And I'm only saying, what I'm trying to say is, in here, are we locking ourselves into a 0.5%?
We would have to go back and revisit
Where
it
you have
if
to
we
go
raise it.
back and do the whole thing over versus going for 1%, and then when you have all your public hearing, no, we're just going to go with the 0.5%, but at least get it through the legislature at 1%. I don't know if I understood that right or not.
Well, we talked about up to, but we just thought this would be an easier sell.
Yeah, the committee,
You know, we got to sell this to the taxpayers. And, you know, if we decided in 4 years that we wanted to go back for more, we could do it, if we had good grounds.
Yeah, we had a lot of debate on that topic, and one was, do your taxpayers trust you? If you say up to 1%, does that mean you're going to take one right away, or is it going to be 0.75% or a half? The committee
This
felt,
just might be a little smaller rock to
Yeah.
throw in the pond, kind of.
yeah,
I'm not pushing for 1%, I just was raising it from
Yeah.
the standpoint
yep.
laws changed down at the legislature too, that, you know, for a while it was easier to get sales tax, and then all of a sudden, too many people were getting it, or it was being abused, and then they tightened the regulations on it.
No, we talked about that quite a bit, we just decided that it would be,
And I think another part of it was most of the communities around us that do have it are at 0.5%.
yeah.
And
so-
to start try to, it became one of those coin flips, and it became 0.5%.
Yeah, and then what we would,
Use that term, but it was a more logical choice, I think, is what we came down to.
we didn't want to be the outlier in the county. You know, so if you approve this tonight, then we would keep this moving, and then we'd use these priorities to develop ballot questions. Now, understand, all of these could pass a referendum, or none of them, or some of them.
So you really have to list each project. You can't
Yeah.
list sewer projects.
You have to list each project. So the danger in listing, well, we want to use it for the sewer. Well, we've got some really well-defined projects in here that we paid to have a study to do. So we've got some really good information that's got the areas that we're covering, why we're covering them, and estimated costs. That's really what they're looking for. We have a very, very high-level estimate of what it would cost to redo the plant that Bolton and Menk has provided to us.
Yeah.
So we would provide this, when we send this to the legislature, you know, we'd give them a copy of this report and say, look at this is what we need to do. We'd give them the sales tax study and say, you know, here's the regional benefit. 80% of our retail sales are coming from not residential property folks. That doesn't mean that people aren't summer people and they winter somewhere else and this is their summer home, but
Let's
there's
move it along, huh?
compelling evidence to that.
Question, when it goes to the voters, does it need a simple majority or more than that?
I think it's,
Simple, I believe. I believe it's simple majority.
I don't
Yeah.
think that's changed.
Thank you.
It used to be, I don't think, if it hasn't changed, it's the simple
believe
majority.
that's
Goes to the voters
56.
next November.
56% would carry it through, right? I mean, more than half,
51.
or 51, but,
You know, and
And
The-
this has to get done now.
This has to get done
Or
now.
we're waiting another whole year to move forward.
we've actually covered a lot of ground really quick on this.
3 years, 2 years.
I'll make the motion that we approve this.
I'll second it.
okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
that's it. Commission reports.
Yes. I believe Dave is going to come forward and speak on this. He's got A and B.
Evening, Council. Item A is a recommendation from the Public Works Commission to authorize a feasibility study for a roadway project, Wildwood Ranch Drive improvements. And this would be the first step in authorizing an assessment project. It's a non-petition project, so requiring 4/5 vote of the City Council. And we're bringing that onto the agenda tonight as a recommended project from the Public Works Commission.
Did this kind of just come up, Wildwood Ranch? I don't recognize that out of the road projects that we had listed.
It was in the capital improvement plan and a project that I think was alluded to earlier this evening as a budgeted project that was postponed or delayed.
I just don't recall it.
It was in this year's.
It was in this year's budget, we just didn't get to it.
How old is that road, Ted? I mean,
2005.
Yeah, the road is not performed the way typical roads have.
it's inverted speed bumps in that road, and what's the reason for it?
I'm sure it's the sub-base.
But it is kind of like every 100 yards, you got a crack. I just drove down there the other day.
I heard the plow today. Boom, boom.
We actually did damage to one of the plows. He hooked in one of the cracks.
Yeah, so you think the whole road's got to get redone, or that's what you're going to look into? Is this time of year a good time of year to look into that?
Well, we would begin with a feasibility study. We could do some borings this time of year. That's possible. Check those areas out.
So it's just resurface, and it's not mill and overlay, it's dig it up and reconstruct.
If there's problematic areas that require subgrade correction, then we would include that as part of the recommended improvements in the study. And
Who put the road in? Was that a city road, or?
it was a developer-driven project.
Yeah, okay. And your feasibility is $4,000, I think that's what I read.
To do the feasibility study. And we would, I've requested Nagel Appraisal to give us an estimate for a benefit opinion for that particular area. So we're waiting on that.
And now is a good time to do it. I mean, is there a benefit?
Feasibility study, yeah.
Yeah. All right, what do you guys think? I know it's rough things.
So I make a motion, we do this.
All right, we got a motion.
I'll second. You're a second, sir.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Especially if we're chewing up city plows by the way the road is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't vote.
Okay, the next item on your agenda is the Cross Lake parking pedestrian study that was completed. This shows, the map I'm putting up on the screen shows basically the extents of the project, calling it bridge to bridge. So the Cross Lake Dam here, all the way up to the Daggett Channel Bridge, along this corridor of Highway 66, and along Highway 3 over to the intersection with Swan Drive, and including Swan Drive and all of the area within the downtown commercial. And this study was a joint project with the city, the county, and the National Loon Center Foundation. With the growth of development within the downtown commercial area, with the proposed Loon Center, and increasing traffic counts and pedestrian bicycle use within this area. We're looking at the concerns of safely connecting the gaps between existing walkways for pedestrians. There's a lot of areas where walkways were created in the development of these properties, but then there's gaps between them, and areas like the Cross Lake Recreation Area. So the study looked at the pedestrian, bicycle movements, traffic, vehicle movements over the July 4th period. We looked at the parking areas and the capacities that were being used. Some of the highlights of the study, the conclusions were that there's quite a bit of parking areas on a typical day are underutilized. People remember the peak events during the year where doesn't seem to be enough parking, but on the majority of the days during the summer, there's quite a bit of parking available, but it's a matter of from origin to destination, from those parking areas to where people want to get. There's a gap of basically no walkway or route for people to get there. With the Loon Center, with their lease agreement, there is no allowance for on-site parking for visitors to the Loon Center. That's going to require people to park elsewhere and then walk to that destination. Also, the Chamber of Commerce offices will be relocating to the Loon Center, so they'll have to park off-site and walk there. So the other conclusions that were arrived in the study were that we took a look at the crosswalks that exist on Highway 66 and where a lot of the traffic, pedestrian-wise, was crossing at uncontrolled intersections or mid-block areas, and we identified areas where crosswalks needed to be improved and enhanced for pedestrian safety and where new ones needed to be located. And those are shown on this map. We then broke this down into a two-phase project. The county engineer has worked closely with us to help define this project, phase one. This is where the greatest need is at the present time. This phase one should happen first. Phase two would fill in the gaps of the connecting trail system and sidewalks throughout the downtown area. A lot of this is improving pedestrian ramps to meet current ADA standards, which is a mandate that must be done. A big part of the plan is to construct sidewalk along the east side of Highway 66 from the intersection with 3 all the way up to the vicinity of just north of Echo Drive and Crafts and Cones area. And we feel that would alleviate a lot of the pressure, if you will, people that are trying to get from the west side to the east side and provide a safer route for people. Okay, so that's very quickly going through the study itself and some of the conclusions. We broke the project up into 2 phases. We submitted a letter of interest to be funded through federal program, Transportation Alternatives Program. Council authorized us to submit that at a previous meeting, and now it's to the stage where we need to consider approving the study as it's been prepared, and we would be submitting phase one with this cost estimate. And this requires this funding program requires a 20% local match. Okay, so we're looking at roughly in terms of phase one at 741,000. You know, the local match would be just about 40% if this gets funded for 2024. All right. So the full application must be submitted by January 3rd, and that's why we're here for you tonight. The county board will be reviewing this on December 11th, on Wednesday, at their board meeting. And I'll be there with Tim Bray from the county to present that. So in the steps that need to be taken, this is the first one. We need the city council's approval of the report and authorization to move forward with full application.
I was impressed with the thoroughness of your study. You had people out counting, I think you had some drones doing things, and you had, I mean, I think very helpful, and I thought the recommendations were things that would be very helpful to Cross Lake if we can pull them off and get some funding.
Thank you.
So Dave, this is phase one. So this is basically from the chamber building to Crafts and Cones, we'll say.
It would include also some work of trail connection on Highway 3. So that there would be a trail, bituminous trail along the north side of Highway 3, completing that gap from the Andes Grill area all the way over to Pioneer Drive. And that would complete that gap that exists right there. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic coming from the Cross Lake Recreation area, traveling to this area, and here they would be able to connect up with the trail that would get them to the town
So
square.
then phase two would continue on Pioneer Drive and do the loop around Town Square.
Right, that would, phase two would include sidewalks along Pioneer Drive and also some trails internally here. The city's been looking at this property, internal, and some uses for that. And that would provide additional connection, if you will. The Reed's Market area is a prime destination for a lot of the people that are also staying at the campground, trying to get there.
So that's $750,000 for phase one, and does that include push-button crosswalk signs? I mean, I saw some stuff on there.
Right.
Easement acquisition, is that what that $50,000 or something was?
Well, we've broken this down, and these are estimates. Phase
Right.
two, the push-button crosswalk signage, which pedestrian activated, would be done in phase two. So that would be some follow-up work done in, on the highway, Highway 66.
Okay, but is it, oh, that's,
Some of the preliminary work would be done in phase one to get that in place, and then the actual actuators would be put in phase two.
so it's $1.5 million to do the whole thing, both phases.
Yep.
How much of a grant are we putting in for?
Phase one, we're looking at the construction. So what the grant pays for is the construction costs. And we have an estimate of phase one of just about $513,000 with a contingency of just over $50,000. So that would be the grant amount that we'd be submitting for. These other costs of engineering, right-of-way estimated. There might be some legal costs and administrative costs. Those are local costs, okay?
And who would be covering that? Is that a combination of city, county, and
Right,
the Moon Center?
The city has, would be sharing that cost with the county where there's improvements along the county corridor. And the county has just updated their cost share agreement, and that will also be, excuse me, on the agenda for the county board meeting on Wednesday for a public hearing. But that cost sharing policy would apply.
So that would
It's
apply on 66 and 3, but nowhere else.
not within the downtown area. There's
Okay.
no county benefit there.
And that's slated to go in 2024, so we're
That's correct.
approving an application for a grant now.
That would be submitted by
2024.
January 3rd, and the grant recipients would be notified April 15th of 2020.
How much does it cost us to apply for the grant?
The full application would be the time and expense of preparing that. Most of that, in talking with Tim Bray, he would be preparing a lot of that from the county, and we would assist. So minimal cost.
But the county would pick up, hopefully, lion's share.
Well,
The grant
of
application.
the application, or are you talking about the project?
Application,
The application, yes.
because that's a hard cost, no matter how you cut that. There's no way, if you don't get the grant and you don't do the project, you still have to pay that application.
So when's the money available? In 2024 then?
2024.
But we would have to pay in 2020, I'm assuming, for that.
For the application. Are you talking $1,000 or something to do it, do you think,
Yeah,
or?
well, the county isn't going to charge the city, to my knowledge,
Yeah.
for preparing the application.
So we're
not
doing-
going to charge the city.
So what do you need us to make a motion for you to submit the full grant?
We're looking for approval of the study as it's been prepared and authorization to proceed with full application as this has been presented. And this will require the county to sponsor the project. Any federal, state monies that come to a city of this size would have to be run through the county.
It's their
So
turn.
they would
I'll make a motion to approve the study and recommend we complete the grant application.
And that it only applies if the county approves it on Wednesday. Does that make sense?
That's fine.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second, and we're not committing, I mean, we're not hanging our hat on anything here, we're just applying for a grant.
That's right. There's other grant programs out there as well. This one requires a 20% match. As I've said previously, with federal money, you need to go through the federal steps, so there's a lot more administrative costs associated with federal grants. But we can review that with the city.
Okay, well, we got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Now, does he need one to submit? One was to approve the
He'll
report,
tell
one was
us.
to submit?
I don't think so, it doesn't look like
Things
it.
on one motion.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, at the Public Works meeting on December 2nd, there was some, very lengthy discussion on the mock assessments. We're going to be talking about that on the 13th here coming up. There was a couple things that came out of recommendations that came out of the Public Works Commission. And realize you guys have already accepted the assessment policy that we have. And this is two changes, I guess, to that assessment policy, or additions. I don't know, however you want to word it. And forgive me if my voice is going away, but. The first one was in the appraisal opinion, the appraiser's opinion, there was a benefit to the lake property and there was a benefit to the off-lake property. So in the assessment, we were treating the one side of the road different than the other side of the road. And it was the opinion of the commission that we should be treating both sides the same. In the mock assessment, we were treating the residents on the lakeside at $7,500 per lot, and the off-lake at $6,500. So it was the recommendation of the Public Works Commission to go to $7,000 for both sides of the road and apply it as such. I don't know if you want me to take these individually, or you want to talk about both of them together.
Well, what was the other one?
The other one was the 10-year term on the sewer connection.
Well, you probably should go over it just for everybody else. Dave and I have been there, but.
You know, we've got a lot of discussion on ages of the septic systems, existing septic systems, and we've got everything from brand new to
who knows?
30-plus years. We don't know exactly how old it is. There's no records that we can even find on some of it. And it was the opinion of the commission that anything that was 10 years or younger, as long as they could prove that their system was working and in a working order, so by that, they would have somebody come out and pump it and look at it and give us a certified, and every 3 years, so thereafter, they would have to do that. So if, let's say if the system was 5 years old, they'd have 5 years then before they would have to connect, or 4 years old, they'd have 6 years to connect. So that's kind of what was the two things that came out of it. Additionally, realize the monthly sewer fees, they start, you know, so you're going to be paying your $50 a month. So that's all part of it.
You also pay your assessment, or you start paying finance charge on your assessment the day the assessment goes through, the policy goes through.
Excuse me.
Or 30 days later or something, but it's,
I have a couple of comments on this when you're,
okay.
whenever to.
Go ahead.
On the second one, I think that's what a lot of you are wanting, a different answer, and I think this probably addresses that, but it would be, in my opinion, that should be an ordinance change. I mean, we could have this as part of the assessment discussion, but if this is something that the council likes to see, we need to update our ordinance. It wouldn't be specific to this project or part of the assessment methodology. It would be relevant to it because their fee structure would change, but this would be a citywide ordinance change. But on the first one, the top one, the recommendation doesn't make sense to me for a couple of reasons. One, we have an appraiser saying that the most we could justify to assess on the off lake was $6,500, and now we're saying we're going to assess more than our own appraiser says we can justify.
He said off lake was
4 to 9.
4 to 9,000,
Oh,
and
so
on the lake
range.
was 5 to
Yeah.
10.
Okay, sorry.
And I think the gist of the thing was the justification part. If Brad lives on the lake,
We tax people at a higher rate, and we don't treat them the same for taxes either. I mean, that's why,
Well,
that's how the appraisal world works.
right.
It's based on benefit, and that's based on value, and no one's going to argue there's more value on lake than off lake.
All right.
So it wouldn't match up with appraisal methodologies, but as long as you're still within the range, if that was, I don't remember the study, and you've looked at it more than I have.
Yep.
If the 6,500, or sorry, 7,000 is still in the range of both, you have that power, but your own appraiser is telling you that you should assess more to the water side.
That's true.
it's true, it's a good point.
Doesn't mean you have to.
Maybe we want to leave it
yeah.
the same and see what happens, you know,
You mean 75, 65?
right?
Yeah.
Until we have another mock hearing and,
Okay.
right?
You wouldn't make final action on that until the hearing, in my mind, anyway. But the first one, if that's what council thinks is a good, or sorry, I'm confusing you. The 10-year idea, my guess is you're going to like that proposal based on comments I've heard before from you guys. If that's true, you should be, tonight, probably directing staff to start working on an ordinance update that would match this recommendation, so that it's in place, not that the assessment construction's a ways out, but we want to prove to the residents that's actually happening.
I mean, you can
Adopt the second.
take these, adopt these two, you can take and sit on them until after the hearing, you can give us direction at the next first meeting in January, you can,
I think we should just,
I mean,
stop.
Phil's already got things ready to go for the 13th.
right.
So this
and
is
he
change, major
doesn't-
change for him.
Phil doesn't have paragraph 1 ready to go. He's not there. This would be a change. But the second one doesn't exist. But I think it would give residents an option that they don't have today from what I've,
And that's the 10-year deal.
yeah. So if
10
your
years to
system is,
hook up.
if it's 10 years or older, you have to hook up right away. If
It
it's
is,
less
then
than
it is a change now realized from
Yeah.
our current policy.
Yep, so,
But that policy is memorialized by ordinance.
Ordinance.
Is what I'm, so if you're all thinking this is a good update, you might want to wait and get input from the group, but I'm guessing the input's going to be, if they can delay connection, that no one's going to be against that proposal. So you're not going to get any public feedback that would,
right.
But they're still
Resist that.
paying for the road to get in.
it's not going to
There's-
solve all
there's-
their concerns, but it helps.
The only thing it's going to affect is the connection fee itself.
But as you recall, on some of those, it was very, very large. So it's timely that they're still paying it unless you change between now and 10 years from now, when they have to connect, you might change that sewer connection charge as well. But it was tens of thousands of dollars for some of the connections.
But now I'm going to offer you up a scenario. We have one of them out there that's an old system that's got problems or has had problems, but they have spent money to fix things on it. Does that now make it a new system?
If it's inspected and the inspector says
I-
it works,
Does it make
Fine.
it a new system?
That's a good question. I think the ordinance needs to clarify that.
yep,
Yeah.
and that's part of the recommendation. Then if
Because
they-
it's an old system that is at a failure point.
But you're proving my point. I mean, an ordinance is a more of a methodical, put it on paper and get people to react to it. Very good point, but somebody should start drafting that
Yeah.
and come back.
No,
But
with
if we
it.
did it, if your system is older than 10 years, you have to hook up.
Well, unless a substantial
way.
repair changes that. The point is, this isn't, in my mind, a final format to approve or deny. It'd be a consensus that we like this idea, turn this into a draft ordinance, and come back. Some of the details, you should have the chance to approve or deny or change.
Well, we can do that on the interim, because I think it is a good option for people to delay it, but
I don't have a problem with that, but I want when the system was installed, not when it was temporarily fixed.
yeah.
Well, I think that the ordinance should be crystal clear, and then you can react to it, and tell us you don't like it or
that's
change
what,
it.
it's based on its age.
Based on the age of the actual system, not the age of
So if it's
when
5
some
years, if
repairs
it's,
were done.
if it's 2 years old and they don't want to connect,
And it's in good working order. I don't have a problem with
so the
that.
inspection has to happen, saying that, yes, it does work, and then 2 years old, he's going to have to do another one in 3 years. But
what
he
if
doesn't have to pay the connection fee, and he doesn't have to rip up his 2-year-old system right away.
But what if he's an RVBO or a VBRO, whatever it is?
Well, other rules might apply.
Yeah,
But
can't
it's-
answer that one.
It's
I
not
don't
just a
know.
connection charge, it's also paying your local plumber to make the connection.
Right,
cost
yeah,
of
there's
that
a
as
big
well.
expense in
Yes.
doing that. so.
But does it sound like
Yeah.
staff should be
Yes.
working on an
Yeah.
ordinance?
Yes.
Is that, we need an ordinance, not just
Right.
a recommendation.
I would agree with that.
So I'll make a motion that we draft
We already
ordinance.
have them, Ted needs to work on updating it and have it in front of you guys as soon as we can.
This is to bring up the discussion. We had probably more than an hour that we talked at
Oh, yeah.
Public Works, so.
And I think we should throw out the 65, 7,500, we should leave that there, and then get through the Friday meeting.
Well, that's not an ordinance change anyway, that's just.
No, I
something
know,
that- You heard
but-
what the committee's 2 cents is, but the final vote would be at the 13th, But the second issue on the connection charge, that's a citywide ordinance change that we need to, that was the recommendation, and I think I'm hearing everyone say, get us a draft to review.
Yep,
Yep.
We have a motion.
second,
I so move. Or,
second, you second.
Who made the motion?
I did.
I second
Okay,
it.
we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And one little thing, everybody be patient with us. We've run out of room to put the snow. When we're going by, it's coming off in your driveway. I can't help it. I can't carry it. That's the easiest place. It's just going to come off when we turn a corner and when we come by somebody's driveway. There are a few mailboxes that have gotten knocked off. A lot of it is the weight of the snow. We're doing the best we can, so be patient with us.
On a positive note, I see the kids are having a good time out there on your hill.
They're sliding already.
Yep.
We just got to get the skating rink finished with TJ, so,
Yeah, well, the hill like I saw, I didn't see the skate rink.
yeah. Well, there's people that are trying, so.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ted. TJ?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I have one item underneath my staff report. The cabinet unit heater located in the foyer of the community center has gone out once again. We already tried to put a Band-Aid on it this year. Just a little history with that heater. It has been worked on, I know Ted can attest to this, 4 or 5 times now. Trying to replace miscellaneous parts, replace the motor once already. So staff is requesting permission to have Mike's Electric Supply and install the new cabinet unit heater. Since Mike has been busy and out of the office, he was not able to type up a formal proposal, but he verbally committed to not exceed $3,600 on this replacement. So this would come out of my general budget to replace.
I so move.
I'll second. Okay, we got a motion, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And that's all I got. Thank you. And just to add on to Ted, we are working very hard to get both rinks ready, both the hockey rink and the recreational sheet of ice. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, John?
Good evening. I have one item for you this evening. We had a request for a new address out off of Rocky Road. And it should focus here in a minute, shouldn't it? Anyway, off of County Road 36, Rocky Road goes north. It does a turn to the west. Right at that junction where it turns to the west, there's another driveway that goes up. There's currently 2 permanent homes back in there and 3 other addresses that have all been applied for. So we need to, a motion for an ordinance amendment to add Rock Lake Trail, which would be the part that goes north off of there, and then add the name to the master road index that you guys
No
have.
plowing, no maintenance?
It's a
no
private
anything?
road. They will be taking care of it all on their own. The only thing that we're going to do is put the signs in place.
I make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Who's up here now? Personnel.
That would be me. Personnel Committee. Item A is a memo from the Personnel Committee. Employee Recognition Program. We do a lot of different things for staff, but we don't really have a good place in our policies where we've documented what we're doing. You know, things like service anniversary awards, recognition programs, retirement recognition, things like that. So what we're asking for is to adopt this policy as recommended by the Personnel Committee, so that when we do a service award, we have some guidance on what we're doing, so we're consistent with everybody. Things like sending flowers, you know, somebody has a mishap, or somebody passes.
Does it
things
include
like
a
that.
20-year plaque or something for service or whatever?
Things like that.
Yeah.
We're looking for the cost shall not exceed $2,500 annually and shall be included in the final approved budget each year. No provision of the policy program or its administration shall be subject to the grievance or arbitration provisions of the collective bargaining units. So we had to throw that in there to make it all good. So what are your thoughts on that?
$2,500 accumulated cost yearly.
Per year, yep.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the item B is another discussion we had at the Personnel Committee. And, you know, while we've talked about, we have union contracts that are in effect, so we don't need to talk about wage adjustment for the union contracts. Those are per the contract. And when you look at the between years and the steps, it's about 5% on the union, both union contracts. So what we do need to do is address the non-union department heads, which would be myself and every other department head, whether it's Char, TJ, Eric, John, and others. Ted, don't want to forget Ted. And what we're requesting is, the reason we don't have a recommendation from the Personnel Committee is because I'm the chair, Eric is a member, Eric Lee, Gary Hecox is a member, and the
The
mayor's a member.
personnel committee is the
So we can't
personnel.
So the personnel committee is essentially the personnel in this case. So what we're asking for is a 3% cost of living adjustment for the 2020 budget reflects. A little detail on the process. What we do is I go out and I look at survey data for what we believe are comparables, other communities similar to us, and we try to figure out where we fall in place with those other communities. And generally speaking, with one exception we'll talk about after this, is we're right in a general range. We're not the highest in that peer group, and we're not the lowest. We're about at the median in most places.
I don't think anybody would argue with the 3% adjustment, right? I mean, that's what they're doing.
That falls in line with what was done for the union people,
As a percent, it's lower than the union,
lower than.
yeah.
Leave it alone, Aaron.
Well, I'm asking.
We have a motion to approve that?
I'll make that motion.
Gary makes the motion to
I'll second.
approve, and we got a second. Any other discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
On behalf of staff and myself, we thank you. Thank you very much. When we look at where do the department heads and the people in that group fall, we had one outlier. When we looked at some comparable data that was available, we found that the manager of Parks, Recreation, and Library was below the bottom of that range. There wasn't a lot of information out there for that position because we have kind of a unique position, and so I went back and I said, what did we do with that position? We tried to replace a coordinator type position and a library position and put them all into one and said, let's try to figure out if that makes sense. And so when talking with TJ and others, I said, what do you think we should do? And so we looked at the range and I said, wait a second. First off, did we accomplish what we set out to do with that position? Yes. I'm not aware of any complaints with how that's been being run. The library seems stable, good results there. We're having similar results with that shared person in the Parks and Rec too. So what we're looking at is what I'm calling a market value adjustment of $2,500 that would put that person at the just slightly below the base end of that range. I know I've talked to some of you about it already. I think it's the right thing to do to recognize that effort.
Yeah, no, I do too, without a question.
Yeah.
And we didn't go all the way up. We're going to kind of two-tier it,
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
Is that
I'll
like,
make that motion.
Motion to approve?
Yep.
Yeah, it's
I'll second it.
a worthy motion. Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Is there a need to name the person or what it is or anything like that? Is that,
Go ahead, TJ.
yeah.
That much?
Jane Munson, and I would have to agree with Mike. She's doing an absolute amazing job, no complaints. I've received no complaints, and she's adjusting to her new position very nicely, so she's really going to like that. Thank you.
Thanks, TJ.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, third item. Do you want to talk about your fire department officers, Chip? Personnel committee? All right. So the personnel committee's recommendation is to accept or approve the fire department officers as listed. I know there was one question, Dave, you had on why does that say,
That should be here.
that should be years, or dollars. instead of
Dollars,
years.
right.
So they're listed in there for your review. You want to put those up on the overhead, Brown? Would be that.
Page.
So are these staying the same, or is somebody moving up or out, or is it all the same?
This is the page they
Be
started,
this one.
First one?
Yeah.
First one?
no, the last page.
That's a good one.
Nick, go ahead.
Corey Ledeen will be moving up to the Chief 3, and Seth Wanabo will be a new captain. The other captains have been on staff as captains for the last 2 years.
So is there an additional captain then? I mean, are you making a new bracket, or did somebody?
There's a new Chief 3. We didn't
New,
have Chief 3.
you're adding that to it.
We're adding that
Okay.
to our officer layout, organizational chart.
And then the new captain is who?
Seth Wanabo.
Seth, okay.
And then
Oh, okay.
Corey
Yeah.
Ledeen moved from a captain
Yeah.
to Chief 3.
Chief, what does having a Chief 3 do for you organizationally?
Well, if either Neil Luzar or myself are out of town, he can take command.
Got it, thank you.
Yep, he has the most training in that area as well, so.
Or if you got two deals going on or whatever.
Yeah, or if you have a big incident, we have more command staff.
Thank you.
I think your guys are doing a great job, Chip.
Thanks.
Also moved.
Is it a motion?
So is that a motion? We gotta approve that?
Also-
Okay. Got a motion by Aaron, second by you,
I'll
Dave?
second it, yeah.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
And we have, last, we have an update from Chief Lee regarding his staffing.
Good evening. Just kind of a update on hiring another full-time officer, the sixth full-time officer. I wasn't able to convince the part-timers to move up. It's okay, they're still part-timers. We will be listing or advertising the position in the Police Officers Opportunity Line, League of Minnesota Cities, local papers. I'll put it on the police officers or the police department's Facebook page. Accepting applications until January 10th. Hopefully going through the applications that week. The following 2 weeks after that, after we notify everyone, have interviews with the select committee. The finalists will be presented to me, 3, 4 finalists, whatever. They'll have an interview with me, and then we'll go to a finalist after that point.
Who's the select committee, Eric?
Haven't come up with that yet. I know Mike, Sergeant Swanson, and I wanted you there as a police liaison, probably someone from the community, and Chief Rooney from Crosby is my initial thoughts right now.
And that'll be the initial group to do interviews?
Yep.
Is that correct?
And they'll
Okay.
select finalists. So at that point in time, the finalists will come to me for a chief's interview. And I'll decide from there, at that point, whether we decide to do lateral entry if they've got some experience and we want to negotiate and offer a job where we can bring them in at a higher step depending on their work experience. At that point, I'm hoping that we'll have, depending on where they're from, we'll do psychological, medical, physical backgrounds. We'll do a full background history, which would probably take 3 weeks to a month to complete, and hopefully March 1st we'll have someone on the road. And they'll train with us, depending on, again, on their qualifications, for about 3 months, so they'll be ready to go come summertime.
Okay, keep us posted.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we got another public forum. No action will be taken on any of the issues raised. If appropriate, the issues will be placed on the agenda of a future council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Each speaker is given 3 minutes. Anybody want to come up? Okay, we'll close public forum. City Attorney, you got anything, Brad?
Not unless there's a question or something, but no report.
Any new business? God, I was thinking of something I wanted to say. Old business? It's that time. Motion to, got a motion by Gary, second?
Second, I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.